The date is September 3rd, 2019. I had a really prolonged out-of-body experience with my spirit companion last night, which is really nice because I haven't seen her in quite some time. This is actually one of those experiences that involved a return to my body. I returned to my body very briefly, and then I went right back to her. She didn't even realize that I had left because it happened so fast. But anyway, that's part of what I remember. But I'll start at the beginning. It started off, I was with a few other people, 3 girlfriends of hers, one of whom was quite close to my spirit companion, has known her for a long time. They're all good friends, basically. And I was walking with them, and they were basically guiding me to her. This is one of those experiences where I was traveling. I came to a stop, opened my eyes, and realized I was in a particular realm. And there were quite a few people around. It looked like a convention of some sort. And I was by myself at first, and then I was approached by these 3 ladies that are friends with my spirit companion. And like I said, one of whom is particularly close to her. And she guided me to where my spirit companion was in this place. It was a rather large kind of a place, and a lot of activity taking place. We had to wait a while, though, because they said my spirit companion was working on some things, and she was in a meeting and taking care of some last-minute functions and assignments. They said she would be done shortly, and they said we could basically walk over in close proximity to where she was, and we could basically just hang out around that area until she was finished with what she was doing, and then surprise her with my presence there. So we arrived to where she was, and I hung out for a while, checking out some places until it was time to actually meet my spirit companion. And I walked by the room because I knew at this point where she was. I had been told. And I walked by the room, and I looked into the room real fast because I didn't want her to see me, because of course this was supposed to be a surprise. But she just looked so pretty, of course, as always. I was waiting for her to get done with the thing she was doing there. And I was hanging out off and on with some other people and talking to them, and just really checking out the place and exploring a bit. And eventually, she finished her business, and she came out and greeted her friends, and I was standing a ways away from them. And I was planning on waiting for her friends to come over and walk with me over to her, but she turned. I guess she knew I was there at that point. She felt me there, and she turned and looked straight at me. And when she noticed me and saw me, she got this look on her face. She was so happy to see me. Her eyes got real wide, and she smiled, this huge smile, and she ran up to me and just wrapped her arms around me and gave me this huge hug and gave me this huge kiss. And we basically just began spending time together at a particular spot where we could have privacy. And as we were sitting there, somebody approached her, and I got the impression it was work-related. She had thought she was done, but then somebody came up to her and gave her an assignment, basically, a remaining assignment that had to be done. So they gave her some paperwork, And she looked at me and she said she was sorry. Just hang on while I take care of this. She said it shouldn't take too long. And so she was kind of turned, and she wasn't facing me, and she was talking to this other person about the paperwork, and then I abruptly got pulled back to my body. And I thought, oh no, I I don't I don't want her to think that I just left. And I could tell she was so aggravated about having to do this work and couldn't talk to me for a while, and then I end up having to get pulled back to my body. But fortunately, I got pulled right back, and I was right back where I was, sitting next to her, which I was glad of that. And she turned to me to see if I was there, and she lightly touched my arm. She said she was almost done, and she asked me if I was okay, and I said, yeah. I said, but do you know that I just returned to my body and just came back like just now? And she laughed, and she said, no. She said, I didn't realize that at all. And I said, yeah, it happened really fast. I said, but anyway, here I am. I'm glad I'm back. And she was really glad to hear that. And she said, well, I'm glad you're back too. But I could tell she was troubled by the prospect of me going back abruptly. And she said, while she's having to get these things done, and this paperwork, she said, I like it when I can hear you talking to other people and I know you're right here next to me while I'm doing these other things. She said, that way I know you're still here and you're still with me. And eventually she finished her work, and that's when we actually started kissing at the table. She said, okay, now I'm finally done. Put the paperwork down. She's like, okay, now you, and she said, we're going to spend time with each other, and it's going to be some really quality time. And that's when we started kissing and just doing things, passionate, romantic things. And that's when we eventually went to this other lounging area where there was a couch, and we laid down there and did some things. And I was at that point getting afraid I was going to get pulled back. And she said she was worried about that too. I said, I wish there was a way that we could make these last longer, where I wouldn't get pulled back so abruptly, and they wouldn't have to end. And when I said that, she got this really intense look on her face, this dreamy look in her eyes. She said, I do too. She said, I wish you didn't have to leave. She said, I wish we could be together always. I said, have you ever heard of a way that something could be done where this could happen, and like where these experiences don't end so abruptly? And she said she was working on it. And then we basically began kissing some more, and just had quality together time at that point. And we probably spent over an hour together, just really getting into each other and sharing, and just having a wonderful time with each other, as we always do. And I eventually, after about an hour or so, I was pulled back to my body.